Hello all my fellow Minecraft enthusiasts, I am Mcnerd, and today I am recreating Scala ad Caelum from Kingdom Hearts 3. This is a project that I've been wanting to do ever since the game originally came out, but I have had neither the time nor the build height to accomplish it until now. The first step in starting this project was figuring out the scale. In order to do that, I hopped onto Kingdom Hearts 3 and flew around the Stairway to the Sky section of the DLC to be able to explore Scala without Xehanort trying to fry my eyeballs. After deciding the width of the normal houses was 9 blocks, I measured the inside circumference of the circle. I used the minimap and a ruler to decide the diameter, and used the old pi r squared sounds like area to me. If you need a circumference, just use pi d to figure out that I needed pi d to find the circumference. Now, I know that the video isn't too stable and everything keeps cutting out because the chunks deload. It's an issue with the sheer scale of this project, and unfortunately the replay mod wasn't working correctly, so I just went in and recorded the overview. This isn't actually the raw footage. Now, in order to transform this build from a giant circle in the middle of the ocean to a livable area, I add these protrusions off the middle ring onto the outer ring to create the shape of what will eventually be the Stairway to the Sky area of Scala at Caelum. Changing this large circle in the middle of the ocean to a man-made circle living space in the middle of the ocean. Once that's done, it's time to move on to the houses. I used the minimap from 3 as a rough guide, making a ton of mistakes, as a human is prone to do. Once I had the length I wanted, it was just a matter of building the single most largest project I've ever done, and probably ever will again. So, you know, no big whoop. Unless, of course, you all have bigger projects for me to do. In other news, what's the biggest difference between me and Ephemer? He had to build this from scratch. I have creative mode. Actually, never mind. He might have had the build laser that we see Aqua use in 3, leaving me with the short end of the stick. Due to the extreme scale of this build, I will be breaking this project into different parts. Depending on how long it takes, it might be 3 or 4 videos. Today, we are going to be handling the wireframing of this project, outlining the overall shape and size of the entire project, as well as laying out the houses that are going to fill the playable areas from the original game. At first, I thought that sacrificing the in-game usefulness of these buildings in order to make the build more accurate was the best decision to make, but then I decided that I wanted to be able to use this as a playable map, and having such weaknesses was quite foolish and stupid. This is going to be my motto for the rest of the project. I'm not afraid to sacrifice accuracy in exchange for practicality. I would rather have a build I could use and be proud of than have one that is accurate and sits in my computer folder for the rest of time. So with that in mind, I think it's time that this project actually started getting moving. Here, I'm trying to decide how I want the layout to be. My decisions on block placement now are going to affect the entire project later, so I'm making sure I do everything perfectly right. If that sounds a little OCD of me, yes it is. But with this being the front room of Scala that is the most explored area of the whole island, I want it to be as close to the original thing as I can. This is the part of the project that started slowing down. Every hour or so, I'd have to go down out of the studio and go check what I'm doing on Kingdom Hearts 3. In retrospect, it probably would have been faster if I just pulled up a mini-map online on my second monitor and looked to my left every now and then, but I'm not that smart. So this is what I did, and I feel the project came out for the better for it. So, it's what I did. So it's what I did. The reason I chose Scala to be the first in this series is because I love this style of build. It's just one big circle and a whole bunch of houses copy-pasted around, but it feels alive, and there's so much detail and things you wouldn't expect to see in a game just dotted around everywhere, and the town feels like it worked well in Minecraft, even though it's a circle, and circles are the worst thing for Minecraft. The amount of times while I was working on this project, I'd log on to Kingdom Hearts to look at stuff, and I'd find something I've never seen before and see that it makes sense for the town was astonishing. There's so many things that you wouldn't think of that are sitting there waiting for you to discover. And that's one of the reasons I love Nomura's work. The man thinks of every little detail, even if you don't notice it yet. There's details from Kingdom Hearts 1 that have only now started to make a difference in the games. There's details of how things are worded in the earlier games that make a difference now. The lore is, I'll admit it, it's very deep, but not as convoluted as the internet will tell you it is. And it's a stroke of genius for a game series that started as just a giant crossover idea. Now that I'm done praising the game, seriously, if you haven't played it, go play it, please. It's time to start on the biggest part of this project, building up the staircase part of the stairway to the sky and the big clock tower in the middle. I'm gonna start with the clock tower because it's big and I want to figure out how tall I'm actually making this. Because I like to work backwards, I built the top of the tower at build height and tried to figure out the dimensions, and then I moved it down once I was done. And I start with a big box, some circles, and decide that I hate it completely. I made this without looking in Kingdom Hearts. I guessed on how things looked, and then I discovered a video called Exploring Scala Out of Bounds. It really helped with this project. It gave me a lot of ideas and showed me how to approach things that I would have had no clue how to handle without it. So thank you to the creator of that. I'll try and remember to link it into the description, but seriously, thank you. Now I'm bringing down the tower top because I didn't want it to be that high, and now I'm going to fix the clock tower. The clock tower is a very weird shape, which is on brand for Nomura, and it has a lot of circles, it has a lot of flat faces that might not be flat, but they look flat, so I'm making them flat. How many times can I say flat till it stops sounding like a word? Now I'm going around the tower fixing all the small details that I thought were weird and trying to make it appear as it does in the game. And that's the base of the clock tower. Adding in the front door and the little dip-in area that I don't know why it exists other than to look cool. Now I'm just finishing up the last little bits of details, and I move on to the circlings around the tower in order to create the structure of Scala. Then I head back down to the bottom, fixing the wall that blocks off the stairway to the sky area, and building a clock tower / boxcar area that acts as a transport to the upper section of Scala. I then turned my focus to the other side that needed to become taller than this side. It's at this point that the whole project started to look like the original product. I couldn't quite figure out how long this needed to be here, so I went back and forth a few times until I finally landed on how I wanted it to be, One of my biggest issues with this whole project has been height. It's quite easy to figure out how wide something should be, but height has been a challenge to figure out. I've been eyeballing it until now, and it's really starting to show that I have no clue what I'm doing. But that's half the fun of being a creator. You get to be creative. Now that I have the shape I want the walls to be, I go back to the town to fix what I have decided I don't like anymore. In my scatterbrain style, I moved on to the entrance to the breezy corridor and quickly decided I didn't know what I wanted to do with this section. It's a very strange shape since it's on the diagonal, and I had no clue how big the room was in conjunction to the first room, so I just went back to building these circles. In order to find out the size of these circles I'm creating, I used the online building tool called Minecraft Oval Generator. Of course, knowing how big the circles would be is only half the battle. I also had to actually implement them, and this took quite some time, as you'll see in this time-lapse form video. Over half of the time spent in this project was making these circles, at least so far. So it's kind of painful to see it be the quickest part in this time lapse. But that's also with taking a bunch of it out because it's super repetitive and it doesn't really need to be in here to understand what's going on. With the basic skeleton of the entire island ready, it was finally time to figure out where the breezy corridor actually should lay. First, I got rid of the circles over the area, leaving one or two on the last little bit so I could figure out the area that is slightly extended. Once I started laying out the houses in this section, I realized I'd have to change how I was approaching this. I'm not exactly sure how it works in game, but the section doesn't line up right with the Stairway to the Sky section to the right. The inner part is further back inlaid. The buildings are aligned all to one way as opposed to the Stairway to the Sky section that they are all splayed like they're following the curvature. The left wall of the breezy corridor doesn't point straight to the middle, unlike both of the walls at the Stairway to the Sky section, so it was super hard to figure out. I started building and realized I couldn't get this to be the way I wanted it to be, the way that was game correct. So I just started building it the way that would work best. I decided to split the breezy corridor into 3 sections. The section by the Stairway to the Sky section that would follow almost the same pattern. The section by the other wall that would be straight with the blocks at a 90-degree angle from the Stairway to the Sky section, and in between, which would be going from corner to corner with the blocks in order to make up the rest of the area. This 40-degree area is the most inaccurate from the game in the entire project. I really wish I could figure out how to get it to not be so inaccurate, but I have done the best I can do with what I have, so I'm going to call it good. It is the best we're gonna get, so let's just move on and complain about it in the comments. But other than that, this video is just about done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again as this project continues on. It's a project that's really close to my heart, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed making it. This is the first big project I've ever done, so if you want to see more things like it, please let me know. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the far lands. May your heart be your guiding key.